Carly Fiorina and Chris Christie today becoming the latest presidential candidates to drop out of the race. This comes off the New Hampshire primary won by Donald Trump last night and Bernie Sanders. Trump and Sanders were both declared winners early on in the evening. Trump crediting his win to voter turnout and Sanders winning with young voters. Now it's on to South Carolina, which is February 20th. The Nevada Democratic caucuses are also that day, with GOP a few days later. And with that, we are joined by Debbie Georgatos, and Debbie is a political strategist as well as a radio talk show host when it comes to politics. Debbie, you wanted to talk first about Carly Fiorina and dropping out. Did this surprise you?
It did. I think last night Carly had a statement out, her campaign had a statement out saying they were moving on towards South Carolina. And, you know, I've had Carly Fiorina on my show a couple of times. She is a very thoughtful person, and I think a really good debater. I kind of liked her input in the GOP debate, so I was sorry to see her drop out. Although I understand as disappointing poll results, you have to make an assessment at some point.
Okay, speaking of poll results, the winners from last night didn't sway a whole lot from what we knew going into New Hampshire with the poll numbers. Trump winning on the Republican side, but that the second place winner in the Republican, did that surprise you?
It did. Governor John Kasich is he is a relentless campaigner, and I think New Hampshire was a particularly perfect kind of demographic state for him. He's a pragmatist. He talks openly and regularly in the debates about working with the other side and finding common ground. And I think that's a theme that plays well in a more moderate state like New Hampshire. I do think, however, as they move toward the South, especially Republican primary voters are looking for someone a little more insistent on the GOP viewpoint of things. So I'm not sure. In fact, I think his polling, John Kasich is about 2% in South Carolina, and he's at 0 in Nevada. So I think this may have been the high point of his poll results. But who knows? We'll see.
That's right. And then that's why I kind of phrased it that way. Kasich has really surprised a lot of people this morning, as a lot of the pundits were talking about it. On the Democratic side, it seemed that Hillary Clinton kind of conceded a little bit early. Did you feel the same way with that?
You know, I actually thought she did a really good speech on that subject. She did well. But and sounded positive after a tough night, and she conceded maybe a little bit early. But a lot of the polling was showing this morning that she really, the only demographic she won in New Hampshire were people who were, I think it was 65 or older, or with family income above 200,000. So a lot of the common Democrat niche voters that she would be counting on went majority for Bernie Sanders. So she's really going to have to re-examine her campaign, how to reach younger voters, and even women voters. Majority went with Bernie Sanders, which was probably a challenge to Hillary Clinton. Definitely a challenge to Hillary Clinton as she goes forward to reconnect with those demographics that she counts on.
How's Donald Trump, in your opinion, going to do as we head into the southern states, especially with the evangelicals?
Yes, I think the evangelical vote, which is so strong in Iowa, is going to be strong in South Carolina on Super Tuesday with all those southern states. I think it'll have a big impact. You know, it's a really interesting thing. Donald Trump does better with evangelicals than I think people might have thought. But I think that they're going to start to see a dropping away of that, because in Iowa, with the evangelical voters, they still had Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee in the race, who took some of those. But in the South, the people really pulling in the evangelicals are pretty much going to be Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and maybe a little bit Ben Carson.
What about on the Democratic side?
I don't think there are enough socialists in the Democrat primary voting base to sustain Bernie Sanders' popularity. I think he did well in a liberal state. He did well in a state that is full of college students. But I think as he gets to the South, the more kind of heart and soul Democrat primary voters are not socialists. So I would think his popularity is going to fall off.
It'll be interesting, that's for sure. Debbie Georgatos, thank you so much for taking the time today. Hopefully we'll be able to hear from you in the coming weeks as well, as we see more of what kind of unfolds.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it so much.
All right. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.